Welcome to the Weird Works podcast. I'm Dr. Christy, your host. Join us for conversations about alternative and sometimes controversial healthcare topics. This podcast will provide the evidence that you need in order to make informed decisions about your health, to empower you with the facts that you need to advocate for your health, and to encourage you that there is hope your body heals. Join us from experts from all things weird, as well as the testimonies of people with stories of radical healing who were once told that perhaps their condition was a death sentence, that they would just need to live with it, or that drugs and invasive surgery were the only answer. Let's get into agreement that if there is something natural and non-invasive that could be helpful, that it could be your first option rather than your last resort. Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Christy, and I'm here with Belinda Casper with Healthy Moxie, and she is going to teach us today about BEMER mat, but specifically the technology is called PEMF, and I thought that was a really good fit for Weird Works because people have no idea what this technology is. They either know and love it and use it every day, or they have no idea. So Belinda was one of the first people I met when I came to Jacksonville. She and her partner Kurt are really good and tied into the community and the natural health community here in Jacksonville. And so we met them through some health events and health fairs and networking. But I want her to introduce herself and kind of tell us a little bit, like, what's your background? How did you find BEMER? Like, how does it all fit in?
Well, I'm Belinda Casper. My background is varied. I had actually really was in the corporate world, and I got into a healthier approach, more natural approach whenever I got involved in yoga as therapy. Yeah. And so I started down that path. I got into essential oils. I was realizing that I needed to get off of the traditional path.
Yeah.
And so I was in the corporate world. I actually came to you. I'm sure you remember well.
Yes.
When I was in that adrenal strain, stressed out, traveling, crazy place. And I knew there had to be a better way. And you were able to help me in so many ways there. So I was on that path and I decided to resign my job. And 2 days later, from turning in a resignation, knowing that I was going to stay in the corporate world, but just knew I needed to make a change, I was introduced to the BEMER. And that was very much a divine experience because I didn't know anything about it. I just happened to be with friends at a gathering. And I felt the BEMER energy flow through me, which most people don't feel.
Right.
But when that happened, I heard, you can help this person and this person and this person. And I knew it was something I had to get involved in.
Isn't that cool?
So I researched it, and literally, even though I just resigned the job, I decided to go all in and get a BEMER for ourselves so that we could prevent the health issues that our family has and really get off that path.
Right.
So it's been an amazing ride, and I know we have much more to talk about it. So I'll stop there.
That's fine. No, I just love that. Like, when people find their path, like, I think a lot of people maybe have jobs in corporate America and have a longing or a desire to do something else or do something of service, but it takes a lot of bravery and courage to, like, make that leap of faith, really.
Well, and when I got involved in BEMER, I didn't intend to completely leave the corporate world. When I went to the academy and learned about it, because when you get involved, you go to a 2-day academy.
Yep.
When I heard of all of the lives transformed with the BEMER, and I was literally driving home from that academy, and I said, Kurt and I were talking, and I said, we have a product that helps everyone in every way, transforms lives, has been around for 22 years, and is relatively new to the United States. Now, at that time, it was 18 years, but now we're 22 years. So time has passed. It's been 4 years.
Always.
And I literally made the decision to get off the corporate path and dedicate my life to get this word out. I mean, because people needed to know what this is and how it can help you in a natural way from healing from the inside out, which we know is the only way healing happens.
Exactly. Well, and I think, it's happened to me time and time again, right? So, we're not just a chiropractic center. We do kinesiology, and then you add clinical nutrition, and then you learn about another product line. And what I feel, and probably the same thing happened to you, is once you know of something that can be helpful, like you're not responsible for that information. So like you can't withhold it from
Right.
people that need it, right?
Exactly. You have a mission now to get the word out.
You almost have an obligation to share it with others, especially when that's the intention and the path that you're coming from, to be of service. So
exactly.
Okay, so well, we talked a little bit like you coming in through Health by Design and everything. So do you kind of have your own health journey? What led you to get out of corporate world in the first place? Was it your health?
Well, so I knew I needed to leave the job I had because of my health, and it was time. I had been there for 29 years for that company and had done a lot, and it was time to move to another role.
Right.
But I knew in that role that I was in corporate America, I was going to continue to travel. I was going to continue to have stressful jobs.
Right.
I was going to continue to not have the ability to have balance in my life.
Yeah.
So frankly, I didn't get involved in Beamer with the expectation of leaving that. I got involved in Beamer wanting to make the investment in my health.
Right.
And I made the decision to just get the Beamer. And then I thought, well, 3 years, I can do this travel, and then I can leave it and go full-time into Beamer, yoga therapy, help people in what I always deemed as my passion career.
Right.
But when I learned, like I said, I knew I had to get the word out. I don't advise people to leave an income source
Right.
to go full into on your own sales support and build a business from the ground up without the income still coming. That's not the advice I give to people.
That could produce more stress and adrenal wear and tear from the doctor in the room.
Yeah, it's not always the best way to go.
Right.
But for me personally, if I can tell you what Beamer has done in my transformation of health, so in that stressed place, you don't sleep well. You can't concentrate. And really, my father had full-blown dementia at that time. And I'll tell you about my dad in a little bit. But I was starting to have trouble concentrating. But that's another sign of stress, right?
Right. And people sometimes start to accept that, like, well, of course, like, maybe this is my new normal. Like, or they just accept it, right?
And that's not the way we're supposed to be. But we think, because everybody talks about it, we think that's normal.
Normal aging or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I got the Beamer to help avoid those things, but I can tell you the amount of energy that I have is enormous. As you know, I go 90 miles an hour. And I don't know that I hold a candle to you, but I still
we're both crazy people.
Exactly. I sleep 7 to 8 to 9 hours, solid, beautiful, restful sleep every night.
How many people can say that?
I've had digestive issues, as you know, being my doctor, but people here don't know that.
Yeah.
For years that got addressed. I no longer have them. And I love to hike and garden and do all of those things. And I'm able to do all of them and recover amazing. So, I can't imagine my life without Beamer. And just all of those things, but just the confidence that my immune system's strong. I don't have to worry about what everybody else is worrying about. Yeah. It's an amazing aspect of our lives that I can't imagine not having.
I love that. Well, the recovery is a big part. A lot of people, I am a chiropractor. That's a big part of what we do here at Health by Design. But we get the weekend warriors who they like to be active and do all the things, but then they come into our office the next week totally broken down and hurting and aches and pains. They have to pay the price because of it. So I like that you talked about the endurance and recovery aspect of
Absolutely.
it.
I mean, Beamer is not just for people who want to overcome illness. We work with a lot of athletes because they love the performance, the endurance increase, the recovery. And then recovery from working and what they're doing, but recovery from an injury too. They're able to get back at what they want to do much quicker and much faster.
True, because athletes aren't going to take like a 3-month sabbatical. Like they always want to get right back in the game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we've piqued everybody's interest. So let's talk about what in the world is Beamer. Like, let's talk a little bit about the science. So it is a PEMF device. So that is pulse electromagnetic frequency.
It's actually pulse electromagnetic field.
Okay. Yes. Well, let's take it away.
Okay. So what a PEMF means, it's a field that comes into our body.
Okay.
and it delivers information. And in Beamer's case, it's delivering a patented signal into our body, and that has an impact. But one thing that we all have to recognize is we are frequency. We are energy beings.
Yes.
There is an energetic action that takes place before a chemical action takes place, right? So we are first frequency and energetic beings.
Right.
So what Beamer's signal, it's a patented signal. It's been a signal that has been in existence since 1998. And that signal specifically is scientifically proven to increase the microcirculation, the blood flow in the microcirculation.
Okay.
It does that by activating the nitric oxide molecules, which are vasodilators.
Okay.
It also has an ability to impact the constriction of the microcirculation. So I'm going to even take a little bit step further because everybody may not understand really how our circulatory system works.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So why, like, people might say, oh, that's great. Like, yeah, blood
But
flow.
who cares?
But why is that so important?
Well, first off, if you think about it, our heart is about the size of this fist, right? So the heart pumps and it pushes blood through the arteries.
Right.
And then it pumps and it pulls blood from the veins.
Right.
And so we're taught in school that impacts all parts of our body. And the fact is that's only 26% of our circulatory system.
Isn't that amazing?
74% of our circulatory system require what is called the smooth muscle. It's called endothelial cells. That has to be a pumping action, and that's called a vasomotion. What Beamer is impacting is that pumping, that naturally occurring vasomotion or pumping action that occurs when we were young. And, we cut ourselves and there was, the next day that cut is gone because we had a vasomotion about 3 to 5 in a 1 minute period.
Okay.
When we age, that can go to 3 to 5 in 10 minutes, 3 to 5 in 20 minutes. We have injuries, we live, we have, food, whatever the choices we've had in life, that can slow that down. So the reason why that's an impact in our chronic conditions and so forth, think about it. If we're not getting blood to where the cells get the oxygen and the nutrients, and we're not pumping the waste products and metabolic waste and toxins out, and that slows down, our cells aren't as healthy, the function of our body isn't as healthy, and we begin those chronic conditions that we think, as we talked about, is everybody says is normal aging.
Yeah.
We weren't intended to have a slow decline to when we leave. We're supposed to live fully and then go.
Right.
So that's what I intend to do, is to
Me
live
too.
fully until I'm no longer here.
I would say God's going to use me up completely and then it'll just be done.
And then you'll just be done.
Yes.
Exactly.
I think so. So that's super interesting. So 74% of the circulation is in the microcirculation.
And the heart can't touch that.
And then we either are pumping it through our motion or natural mechanisms in the body, or it just gets sluggish. We'll have to put this link, but I think to visualize this is better than any words we could put on. We'll put a link to a video that's pretty incredible. It shows like the little capillaries, and that's what you're talking about when you say microcirculation.
Yeah, it's the arterioles and the venules in front of the capillaries. So you'll actually, we'll put a link and you can see that it shows where an individual, now the individual in that video is a youngish, when you're at my age, there's a big gap of youngish.
Me too. I can say youngish also. Yes.
Who's athletic, but stressed, and stress restricts that blood flow.
Right.
And so we see the beginning state, and then you see it at 2 minutes, at 6 minutes, and then after an 8 minute, and it goes from like what I consider, the sluggish traffic at Disney World on a Friday afternoon to the Audubon, in an 8 minute period. It's phenomenal.
True. So the capillary, tell us, is it the size of a hair? What is the size of a?
So an arteriole is actually, we can fit about 25 arterioles in a human hair. So we're talking tiny, microscopic.
Right. So the video shows this microscopic little arteriole, and basically it's only the width for one single blood cell to get through.
Right.
And see these little blood cells like sluggishly like creeping through it.
One at a time.
Like really sluggish. And then there's some fluid that goes between, and then bloop, like another blood cell flows through. And then they film it with people on the beamer, and all of a sudden it's just like you can barely see the cells, individual cells, because it's just flooding through there.
Oh, yeah.
So that's incredible.
It is. And what's also really fun to watch, if you watch the video, is on the right side is the venule returning to the heart. You'll see the white blood cells starting to have a rolling action, and you'll see the blood blowing past it really fast.
Right.
But then it has an impact. It's called ICAM1 on the white blood cells. So it allows the rolling action to make our white blood cells more effective. So Beamer doesn't create more white blood cells in your body. It just makes the ones in your body more effective.
And your white blood cells is your immune system. So how important is that? I think everybody in the world right now can appreciate how important your immune system is in 2021.
Yes, we can.
2020 with our quarantine and everything.
And another thing, if you think about it, the lymph system starts at that interstitial space.
Right.
There is no actual pump for the lymph system. That's part of the movement.
Right.
So if we're pumping the blood before and after, and we're able to also support the lymphatic system to have more flow through that. So, I mean, it's just, Beamer helps in every way.
Well, and so I'm just going to break down. That was a lot of science, and some people are totally rolling with us. But it's important for you to know that there is science behind it, whether you understand like every acronym and every like vocabulary word that we use in this interview or not. It's just important for you to understand that there is research and science behind this, because sometimes it becomes immeasurable for people. They lay on the mat and they may or may not feel anything in an 8-minute session, but what's happening on the inside of the body is a measurable improvement.
Oh, yes. And you can actually pull up science if you go to pubmed.gov, and we can put that in the link.
Yep, we will.
PUBmed.gov, or scholar.google.com. And if you type in Beamer therapy, you will get actual studies of Beamer.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a phenomenal opportunity for people to know it is real science.
Absolutely. And, I know we're Weird Works podcast, and I'm Miss Alternative Medicine, and I'm open to a lot of things. But I think another fact for people to realize is that there are medical doctors who are using this every day in practice. It's not just my woo-woo friends out there, right?
Oh, yeah. We say Beamer is the best team player for anything you do, regardless of your modality. It's going to support what you do. Right. You're all about nutrition, right?
Yeah.
So if we're able to get more of what we're putting into our body to ourselves, that's going to be more beneficial. But also for other doctors, they haven't embraced it completely, but we have cardiologists using it, a lot of different doctors of variety capacities using it, because they realize what it can do for the body. And I can give you another little thing that kind of gives us that credibility is we work with NASA.
Yeah, that's true.
We've been working with NASA since 2015 because they've been trying to solve why the astronauts or compensate for, they know why, because when you leave the Earth's geomagnetic field, you atrophy, and they're gone for a long time. But they've been trying to solve for that, and they've been using PEMF technology, but they realize nothing can do to the body what Beamer does for the body.
Yeah, that's incredible. And we love that. Like, well, of course, if it's NASA approved, they're not going to put their name behind something that's not credible. And we have another technology upstairs, the chiropractic scans that we use to analyze like alignment is another NASA approved technology. So we bring you the best.
That's right.
Right? Okay, so I think, well, I'll just break it down a little bit further, because I love Beamer because it kind of fits into my ABCs of medicine. Like what I tell patients on a daily basis, to boil it down, is we take the bad stuff out. So Beamer helps detox and move the lymph and help the body get old stagnant blood flow and everything out. So it works right in alignment with that. And then we put the good stuff back in. So for us, it might be some kind of nutritional deficiency or something like that, but it could be blood flow and oxygen, because your blood carries all the good stuff that we're giving the body and delivers it on a cellular basis. And when we do that, we take the bad stuff out and put the good stuff in, the body can heal.
Exactly.
And that's something that I'm adamant on this show and in daily life, that we teach people that there's so much more hope, and there's so many more technologies and things that you guys just need to do your own research and get exposed to Beamer and some of the other things that we're featuring on the Weird Works podcast, because we just want you to be encouraged that there are so many things to empower you, that you can take your health into your own hands, some good things that you can do instead of wait for the inevitable death sentence or diagnosis and then drugs and surgery and the whole
absolutely.
cycle.
And one of the things you just said is hope.
Yeah.
These technologies and what you do and what Beamer offers provides hope.
Yeah.
And that's the first step of the healing process.
Right. So if you've been given a death sentence, a diagnosis, you've been told just live with it, there is nothing else other than maybe take a medication for the rest of your life.
Don't believe it.
Yeah. I highly encourage you to get associated and in communication with like-minded people who know the power of the body to heal and can introduce you to things like Beamer or nutrition therapy or muscle testing or whatever weird but helpful modality.
But works.
Yeah, but it works. That's why we say it. We say it might be weird, but once you experience it and it starts working, the weirdness falls away, once you have an experience with it. Okay, so I think people understand EMF, right? There's all this scare about EMF and then it's dangerous and it causes cancer. 5G is a concern for a lot of our listeners. So does the Beamer help, does PEMF help combat the EMF?
So the Beamer signal is PEMF. So Beamer signal is really the magic of Beamer. Okay. And it is delivered through PEMF, but all PEMF is not the same. Okay. Some PEMF will go to a high signal frequency, and that high frequency is not necessarily good. So the reason why we hear EMF is bad is it's a high frequency hit to us and a nervous system. Okay. And all frequency, it has information. And so that's an agitation versus a calming that the Beamer signal, which operates at a very low signal. So if it's okay, I can get a little more scientific again.
Yeah, go for it.
So the Beamer signal offers a 10 and 33 hertz signal. Okay. So that is basically what creates that pumping action in the microcirculation. So hertz, just for our listeners, is a cycles per second.
Right. Okay.
The PEMF signal is delivered as a flux density into the body. Okay. Right. And that is, we start at 3.5 microteslas. Okay. We can go up to, for the full body application, we can go up to 35 microteslas. And then if we're working on a focused application to something, we can go up to 150 microteslas. Okay. Now, I didn't know what a microtesla was before I started this world of Beamer. But if I can help people in a perspective is we know we have fields of energy. And if we know the Earth's geomagnetic field, right? And we hear people, you may have heard of grounding, take your shoes off, walk outside, allow the Earth's geomagnetic field to come in your body. Too. So that field is between 35 to 65 microteslas. Okay. Okay. So think about what I just said about Beamer. Right. 3.5 to 35 for our full body impact. Okay. And the Earth's geomagnetic field is 35 to 65, depending on equator and so forth. Cool. So Beamer signal is at such a good low level. It's actually lower, and in the frequency, it's lower than FM radio. Okay. So, it's so low. So some people say, I don't feel anything. Right. But that's a good part of our nervous system. It actually, we have an autonomic nervous system, which I'm sure everybody heard about the sympathetic, that is the stress and the fight, flight, freeze place that everybody gets, that many people are living in. True. And then we have the parasympathetic, that is the rest, digest, and really where the healing takes place. Repair, right. So Beamer helps our nervous system to balance and get into that parasympathetic, because it is that calming, where that 5G impacts that negative part of our autonomic nervous system. Beamer helps us get into the balancing, rest, digest, heal, repair side. Yeah. Hope that makes sense. No, it wasn't too complicated.
No, I don't think so, because I think we've talked a lot about adrenals and fight or flight and the stress response. And, if the Beamer can help with stress, 95% of diseases are related to stress. So that's why it's yes, it can help with a lot of different things, because if it's stress related or it's circulatory related or it's inflammation related, well, who can say that they wouldn't benefit from those types of things?
Right, exactly.
So as far as the people not being able to feel it, because I think that's really interesting for people, it's like it doesn't vibrate, it doesn't have heat when you
I
lay
wish
on
sometimes
it.
it did some
I
kind
know.
of.
I'm like, just put a heating pad in it just so people feel something. So sometimes it can become immeasurable, except for people who are very sensitive. Like we definitely have patients who are sensitive to energy and they lay on it and they feel like immediately like their blood flow and stuff. But I think, Belinda, the best explanation I heard was like, well, you're not aware of your blood flow on minute by minute, second
We wouldn't
by
want
second
that. That
basis.
would be agitating.
Yeah, it'd be so overwhelming if you could feel every blood cell like pumping through your arteries and your veins and your capillaries. Like you wouldn't be able to think and like get through your day or be very like performance based whatsoever. So that is kind of why they're not feeling it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we wouldn't want to feel that. Now, there are people who will say, I feel warm.
Yeah.
But that's more because circulation's happening in an area.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree. I wish that we could have bells and whistles somehow. But if you think about it, our nervous system needs us to not have that. It needs us to calm.
Right.
It needs us to be able to allow our body to do that. So it's the right way, but there are people who are very suspicious when they don't feel anything.
Yeah. Well, and I think like what you just said, it made me kind of giggle on the inside because like us that are kind of go, go, go and what kind of adrenaline junkies like running on that high of all the time, like fight or flight. And it's just kind of our nature to want more of that. That's kind of how we get an adrenal fatigue in the first place, constantly craving and desiring, seeking after more stimulation.
Right.
And so it could be really weird, right, to suddenly lay in quiet and have this thing be very calming over your body. And you're like, I don't feel anything,
Well, and it's funny. I didn't even tell people it's only an 8-minute session.
Yeah.
It's 8 minutes twice a day.
Right.
So there are people that literally say to me, I don't have 8 minutes. And I said, well, then you need 16. Because if you don't have 8 minutes to lie down, put your feet up and breathe slowly, then you are on a path of destruction.
Right. So you really need to kind of like, I would say, like, I encourage people to kind of go and think about that. Like, why can't they? And I'll tell you, like, I have full confession on this show for sure. When I first laid on it, I was like, 8 minutes felt like forever, an eternity. I was like, is this thing gonna beep? Maybe the volume's off. I'm like, is it still running? I'm like checking the timer on it. I'm like, oh my gosh, 4 more minutes.
Well, and what I do too is I explain when I share the BEMER with people, I explain everything, and then I won't talk to them for the 8 minutes. And if they keep talking to me, I'm like, we're not talking for 8 minutes. You have to be quiet. You have to close your eyes and breathe slowly. Because honestly, we all need that time out to calm our nervous system. So that's another wonderful thing. The BEMER makes that discipline.
Yeah, it forces you to take at least 8 minutes, which 8 minutes is a really great starting place.
Yeah. Nothing. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so we always encourage stories of radical healing because we talked about that a little bit in the beginning, but like we refute the fact that like bodies don't heal and that things need to be chronic and we have to accept this like normal, like in quotes, aging process. But can you describe a radical healing journey from using the BEMER?
I teach academies. I'm in a lot of meetings and I hear of huge life-changing transformations.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, BEMER doesn't allow us to talk about other people's transformations, but we can provide access for people to hear recordings of them speaking about their own.
Right.
So if somebody reaches out to the recordings or to the links we have, we can share that. But what I can tell you is I can tell you what I witnessed in my father.
That'd be fun.
So I got the BEMER because my dad was in full-blown dementia. I mean, my mother had 8 bypasses. They both have diabetes. They both have heart disease. And I did not want to be in that path. But my dad was full-blown dementia at this point. We had taken the car keys away. He was sitting in front of a TV. He barely was able to have a conversation. He was not engaged in life at all. So we learned about the BEMER in December of 2016, got our BEMER in January. We got my parents a BEMER in February, and my father turned 80 that July. So I can only talk about my observation. But my observation was from February to July, my dad came back. He was driving again. He was cutting the grass again. He was engaged in conversation. He came out for events. He was, it was his 80th birthday. So my children and everybody was there. They live in Pittsburgh. So, I live in Florida. So we don't see them all the time. So I could hear in his voice on the calls that he was talking more. But when I got to see him and the sparkle of his eye and the color in his face and him telling the same old jokes I heard for years, it does bring tears to my eyes just thinking about it, because my dad was back, and even my kids said, Pap's back.
Yeah.
And so, I can't tell you there was a diagnosis change, but I can tell you I witnessed a man come back to life and live his life again.
That's
and that
amazing.
To me, I can tell you, I went from being excited about the Beamer to being on a mission to tell everybody about the Beamer after that.
Well, and think about like what you prevented, when we get people, traditionally here in America, when people get older and they go through those changes, it's immediate. Like, okay, we're looking at long-term care facility.
We were having those conversations with our family, and that we no longer had to have those conversations.
I love it.
Yeah,
you got to continue living. So that's a total like giving life back. It's incredible.
It was. I can't say a miracle. We never say the Beamer is a miracle. Our bodies are the miracle, but it was a miracle.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
And I'm going to just go on the record and say why Beamer. I'm going to defend Beamer because we have so many stories that we wish we could share with you, but we want to stay compliant. And so, we don't want to interfere with any FDA. Like, we're not allowed to say we can like diagnose or treat or cure any named diseases or conditions. So there's so many things that it could help with, but we just kind of have to steer clear of claiming those types of things. Although we know that it can be beneficial for anybody. And that's the same here as a chiropractor. I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't diagnose and treat conditions, but people's
lives are transformed.
But people with a myriad of different conditions are able to get help with the techniques that we offer. So I'll just go on the record and explain if you're frustrated why we can't share more amazing stories. We're only allowed to share our own stories.
Exactly.
The reason. So you can agree with that or not. We don't agree with it. We think we should be able to say what we want, but we'll be compliant somewhat. Okay, so then I also know the Beamer. So yes, we talked about it's 8-minute sessions, which is great. Like in an office like mine, you can come in and use it if you don't yet have your own Beamer mat. But there are other functions. So the Beamer is meant to be a regular modality, like a daily use type of a thing. So you want to talk about how it covered you for like 12 hours?
Sure. So the Beamer signal lasts in the body between 12 to 16 hours on average. When we say average, there's some little higher and lower.
Yeah.
But so that way, if we're 12 to 16 hours and we have 2 8-minute sessions, then we're 24 hours of improved blood flow.
Right. That'll cover you.
But Beamer, so that's really what we call the systemic impact. So Beamer has many different applications, and they have a full body mat. They have a belt that some people use for their systemic on their spine. Or they can wrap that belt around an abdomen or their knee or, leg or whatever. We also have a spot, and that spot, all of those deliver the signal. So let's say somebody didn't have feeling in their legs, and they wanted to have that feeling back. They could wrap the belt around that. And they can do that more than twice a day.
Okay.
So when somebody has something they're recovering from, they can use Beamer 4 to 5 times in that particular area. It's the twice a day that we recommend because of that 12-hour improvement of your blood flow, and more often doesn't make it go faster. So it's not that it's a problem to do more often for the systemic for that 8 minutes. But if you want to recover from something, you can absolutely do it, what we call focused applications, with those the belt and the spot. More often. Right.
And we use that a lot for those purposes in the office. If somebody has a specific area of complaint or something that we're working on, like for chiropractic, or they're recovering from, we'll use like a focused application. And oftentimes like they'll feel improved.
Even before you do the adjustment.
Yeah. Or at least like a little bit more mobility and less restriction in that area before they leave.
And doesn't it make the adjustment better?
Yeah. So a lot of times we'll use it to get people prepared, because one of the myths of chiropractic is that it hurts or that it has to be too forceful. And so when we apply some of these modalities to get your body ready to receive the adjustment, we don't have to use as much force, but then also like the therapy lasts longer as well.
Right.
So, and then tell us about the sleep modality with the Beamer as well.
Okay, so the sleep program
Mhm.
is amazing. I sleep on it every night.
Okay.
And what it is you basically turn it on and you just set it for when you want to wake up.
Okay.
So it comes on for 2 hours
Mhm.
in the beginning when you go to bed.
Mhm.
At that signal, it's really just intensity 2, which if you remember, I said 3.5 for the first one. Intensity 2 is 7 microteslas. It is
Mhm.
such a low frequency, but it
Okay.
really calms the nervous system. So it's on for 2 hours, and then you turn when you want to wake up. It's on for 2 hours when you wake up.
Mhm.
It puts you into a deep, beautiful sleep.
Mhm.
And then that second time it comes on, it often just helps bring you back up to waking up.
Yeah.
And you're sleeping, like I said, sleeping 7, 8, 9 solid hours of sleeping. And a lot of people don't even use the sleep system. Beamer helps everybody
Mhm.
sleep better, even if you're not using the
Like
sleep
just doing
program.
the 8-minute
Just by
session.
doing 8 minutes
Yeah.
twice a day. I mean, you get a bunch of people in a room that are Beamer people, and they talk about how amazing their sleep is, the
Right.
colors, the dreams, the vivid, like solid sleep, how thick their hair is, how much energy. I mean, it's like this
All
standard
the
check,
things,
check,
yeah.
check, yeah, that everybody wants to have.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and that's a big thing. That's why I wanted you to talk about it, because that's probably one of the top 10 reasons that people come here to our center is because of some kind of sleep disturbance or interruption.
And
So,
that causes so many issues
oh
to
yeah,
our health
I always say like,
and psyche.
yeah, sleep is not overrated. Like
No.
when people come in and unfortunately tell us like they've had insomnia for like 10 years, I'm like, to me, I'm like, how are you living? Like I have one and worse off 2 bad nights of sleep like consecutively, and I feel like a zombie.
I
So
know.
that has become one of those accepted, like they're just underperforming and accepting
And they
that
think that's
just
normal.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good as it's gonna get.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, that's the worst case scenario, is when you can't even really like visualize how good it could be, like because it's been so long since you last felt your best.
Well, and most people, it's
for.
slowly lost.
Yeah, it's a gradual decline.
Mhm.
So it's not like you have health and then you suddenly don't, and so you can see that glaring like difference and you know what it was like. It's just a slippery slope, and so when it happens gradually like that, it can kind of sneak up on you, and then one day you're like, hold on a second, like
What just
this
happened?
isn't good enough. Yeah, and then you kind of have to shake yourself out of it and like
Mhm.
get motivated to take some action. So okay. And then of course animals love it. I know you guys know little Petey here. He's all over our social media and everything. I know when I get on the Beamer, he just jumps right up, wants to be with me. But animals love it, right?
So we have an actual horse unit.
Mhm.
So Beamer has what we call the veterinarian unit, which
Mhm.
is for horses. It's designed for horses. It has a beautiful blanket. It has cuffs for the legs. I mean, and the whole
Pretty cool.
equine world absolutely loves
Yeah.
it. And you can literally watch the horse instantly relax. I love working my days with the horses
Yeah.
because they're, people are in their heads and people will
I
say,
was
I don't
gonna
feel anything.
say, yeah, there's so much more and based on instinct and intuitive that they don't judge it, like they feel it. They're more
Yeah.
susceptible to the
And they
effects
just
of
show
it.
all the signs of relaxation.
Mhm.
So when a human has
Mhm.
a human unit, we say it's off label
Yeah.
on animals. However,
Right.
if you have a pet,
Mhm.
a cat, a dog, and you are on the Beamer, they come running.
Oh yeah, they just know, they come right to it.
And they know what's good for them. I mean, there's so much, I don't want to say so much smarter than humans, but they really are so much,
Yeah.
so much in tune.
They're what we wish we could
Yeah.
do, like get out of our minds, be able to relax, lay and take a nap without having to like prepare and do anything special. Like that's kind of what they're our little like, they're kind of our little like
There are reminders of the way we're
template.
supposed to
Yeah,
be.
like just be like your pet.
But they come running. And
Yeah.
there are pets that will go lie on the Beamer and basically get they have trained their owners
To turn
it on.
Yeah. I say that all the time. I'm like, I don't really know if we train our pets so much as they train
Yeah,
us. Like
yeah.
Pete has me trained for
Yeah.
sure.
So there's some great animal stories that people can share. Obviously, like I said, I
Yeah.
can't do that myself. But when we do have horse stories and
Yeah.
we have a lot of vets working in that
Mhm.
horse community.
Mhm.
So, if you think about it,
Mhm.
any mammal with a circulatory system can benefit with
Yeah.
improved blood flow.
True. Exactly. And like with horses, we have people in our family who own competitive horses, and they're in races, and they fly their horses like across the country for these big events. And of course, like recovery for them is critical.
Well, not only that, they're stressed animals.
Yeah.
They're in that fight or flight place
because they're being trained for performance.
And they're prey animals.
Yeah.
So they have that. They go literally from eating to running, and they're very jittery.
Right.
So getting in a trailer and flying it makes
a
them very
lot.
nervous, and that has a lot to do. And
Right.
when we can calm their nervous system to do those sort of things, and then help them in the recovery and help their body heal. I mean, people spend so much money on their horses. This is a nominal expense that helps so many people.
Well, and this is reminding me of one person that was at convention, and they were talking about getting cattle out of fight or flight to increase milk production. So there's a cool story out there about that as well. So
we actually personally experienced that ourselves. Yeah. And we went from a cow not being producing to overproducing.
Yeah.
Yep. Here in Jacksonville. It's a great story.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Beamer, anybody who has the blood flow, it's going to benefit.
Right. Because again, if you bring blood flow and oxygen in, and waste and, toxins and inflammation out, anything associated with that is going to work better.
And I don't think I actually even stated that Beamer is scientifically proven to increase oxygen utilization by 29% in the cells.
That's amazing.
That really is. Think about 29% more oxygen utilization in your cell. That means your cell performs better, your organ performs better, the body system. I mean, it just has a cascading health effect.
Well, and this is interesting. So everybody knows the word antioxidant for the most part. So we know antioxidants fight off free radical damage and help prevent cellular damage and destruction in the whole aging process. Antioxidant has the word oxygen in it. So oxygen is the best, most powerful antioxidant that we have in our system. And so Beamer taps into the body's natural antioxidant system. So people spend a fortune trying to eat all these things and take all these supplements, which are helpful. But if you can just tap into your body's natural oxygen production and utilization, you have your own onboard antioxidant system.
Yeah.
So that is a little science for you guys too. Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit, like I know that there's analysis, and maybe we could put maybe one of the charts, like a comparison of Beamer's PEMF to other mats. There are other mats that are less expensive that people are buying. There are other mats with infrared and amethyst crystal stuff. And so do you want to just, like, in short, kind of tell us the difference? Because there is a big difference.
Sure. So Beamer is in a category of PEMF, which is what we said was pulse electromagnetic field. Yeah. So there are other PEMF devices.
Sure.
We are the only class 2 FDA cleared PEMF device. Okay. We are in 43 countries. We are a class 2 in all of those countries.
Awesome.
And many other countries are using it more in their medical practices. But Beamer is the only PEMF class 2 FDA medical device. So that's point 1.
Okay.
Beamer is the only one that if you go to PubMed.gov, which is an official government medical case studies, that has medical case studies on it.
Right.
So Beamer and PEMF is the way we deliver the patented signal, and that is really where the difference is. So Beamer's patented signal is, and I don't want to get too technical, but basically it's called sinusoidal because it goes up and down, but it is an increasing amplitudes of 40 amplitudes. So 40 peaks, 40 valleys.
Okay.
So that has about 1,200 stimulations per second to the body.
Okay.
Most PEMF device has what we call open source, like open source programs on a computer.
Right.
So it's an open source wave. So it can be sinusoidal, up and down. It can be square.
Right.
It can be sawtooth, but it's an open source wave. So the only thing they can really do is increase intensity, right?
Right.
Okay. They typically have about 300 stimulations per second.
Okay.
So it is it is not anywhere near what Beamer can do. And we've actually done studies, and we've been able to prove if that oxygen test I was talking about, we can prove 29% oxygen utilization. And in that study, when we looked at 4 other PEMF devices, their highest was 10. Okay, we're 29. And then on the 4th day, we actually shut everything off, and they all went back to 0 impact on the body. And the Beamer people on that placebo day had actually 13% oxygen utilization improvement. So we have studies that compare them. And so Beamer considers themselves in a category of 1. We really don't have competitors. We have admirers that compare themselves to Beamer. So, when you always, they always compare to the best and say, well, look at us, we're cheaper. Well, and Beamer's not that expensive. I think it's very affordable, especially when you think of all that it does for you. So that's the comparison in the PEMF category. In the amethyst crystals or the biomat they're different modalities. Infrared is a different modality than the Beamer. The biomat is a different modality than the Beamer.
You can't really compare them.
Yeah, the Beamer is improving microcirculation. These other modalities have different impacts in the body. But Beamer is the only device, regardless PEMF or any other category, that is scientifically proven to increase blood flow in the microcirculation. There is nothing else, no other category, no other product, no other competitor. Nobody has the scientific proof of increasing blood flow in the microcirculation. And to me, that is why we're in a category of 1.
And that's important, because I know people are going to go and, research. As we encourage you, do your own research and make the best decision for you. But make sure you understand how to compare one person's research to the other, and that you're comparing apples to apples, kind of a thing.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Don't always, and do a scholar.google.com search, because they can't give competitive ads. If you go to Google, they bought the keyword of Beamer. So you put a Beamer, they put in their competitive information. If you go to scholar.google.com, no matter what you're searching for, they can't do competitive ads. To me, that is one of the best pieces of information we can provide anybody.
Yeah, that's a great tool for patients as well and listeners. So we'll put that link in the comments as well for people, because you always want to make sure you're getting the facts. And in today's world, we know what's popular on traditional media, even social media. We know it's being censored. We know that people pay for advertising to get their message out there louder than the rest. And that's not always the truth. That's not always the pure message. So just do your due diligence, get informed and educated. But this has been incredible. This is very informative. I think hopefully for the listeners, you heard some stories of hope and encouragement. You heard some stories of radical healing. We threw a little science at you, so you know that this is credible information. It's not just us people that love the weird, love the woo. And I hope that it touches you. I hope that somebody out there, finds this information and it changes your paradigm of thinking, and maybe even moves you to take some action and find some of these resources for yourself.
Okay.
So you've been an awesome guest. Thank you for joining us. We probably will have her back, because there's tons of information that we can have. But reach out to us, use the links, and I'm going to sign off for now. I'm Dr. Christy Harvell with Weird Works, telling you that good health happens naturally. Until next time, bye.